Adderall and amphetamine drugs. The history of Adderall. Adderall is a dextroamphetamine-amphetamine combination product. Amphetamines were synthesized in 1887, adapted many times, and finally made into medication in 1927. They were originally called benzenogens. Benzenogens were discovered to have a positive effect on children with behavioral issues in the 1930s. They were frequently used in World War II. German and American soldiers would use pep pills to keep them awake, alert, and focused in long days and hard battles. They were found to be addictive to these soldiers, but the pharmaceutical companies dismissed those claims even though they were true. Adderall was created in 1996, and the extended release version, which is used today, was created in 2006. The pharmacology. They are Schedule II controlled substances, which means they have addictive qualities. They increase the firing of the neurotransmitters in the prefrontal cortex, the basal ganglia, and the hypothalamus. These neurotransmitters are dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. They also increase adrenaline, which initiates the fight or flight response. All of this increases focus, decreases impulsivity, and decreases depression-like symptoms. The drug also stops the dopamine reuptake in the synapse of the cell, which means dopamine will stay in the synapse a little bit longer, and that helps with all of the issues with ADHD. I wanted to put this here to point out the difference between meth and Adderall. They are actually only one methyl group difference, so we're giving children and adults Adderall, and there's only one chemical compound away from being methamphetamine. How ADHD affects the brain. I wanted to point this out, that it affects the prefrontal cortex, the basal ganglia, the limbic system, and the reticular activity system in multiple ways. That creates the impulsivity we see from children, the lack of focus, the hyperactivity. In 2016, the CDC estimated that about 6.1 million children, which was 9.4% of the population, were diagnosed with ADHD. 62% of these children receive some type of medication for their symptoms, whether it be Adderall or Ritalin. Boys than girls were more likely to be diagnosed. And amphetamine prescriptions increased 2.5-fold from 2006 to 2016. So these prescriptions are starting to be given out a lot more. Adderall use. Adderall is a Schedule II substance. It is addictive. Your brain will stop making those neurotransmitters on their own, dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. You will seek out the drug if you become addicted because of those feelings of euphoria that it can give you. Individuals who are withdrawing from the drug or don't take it will feel a decreased in ability to feel pleasure, increased anger and agitation, increased lethargy, feelings of weakness, seizures, increased heart rate, hallucinations, paranoia, and blurred vision. High school and college is where the drug is being abused most. High school students from 7th to 12th grade are starting to abuse the drug. Palmer et al. Discovered that 6.9% of students misused Adderall and 7.9% misused various amphetamine drugs in general. And the percentage increases with age. So 7th graders are abusing them, but not at the same rate as 12th graders. Activity on college campuses. College students reported 4 reasons for illegally abusing or using Adderall. Pressure to succeed, sociocultural expectations, collegiate lifestyle, and accessibility. The pressure to succeed was academic pressure. Pressure to get good grades, taking an Adderall to stay up all night and write a paper. Sociocultural expectations at parties or other events. If students are taking various drugs, some college students will take an Adderall thinking that it's safer. Collegiate lifestyle. Many of these college students are full-time academics while they have jobs, while they are doing sports and other recreational activities. So they'll take a pep pill similar to the way that a soldier would to stay awake and get everything done. And accessibility. The prescription drugs are all over campuses because of how much the prescriptions have increased. It's from 2002 to 2016. So they are very accessible, and college students believe that they're safer since they come from a doctor. A study by Garner et al. Examined 483 college students on a Maryland campus. 35% admitted to diverting the medication at least once. 62% admitted to diverting the medication more than one time, and 9% admitted to selling the medications on campus. I do want to point out that there are federal laws put in place. First offense possession of any Schedule II controlled substance could be up to 1 year in prison and a $1,000 fine. Distributing could be a $5 million fine and 20 years in prison, and distributing on a school or college campus could be double the penalty. I want to summarize the problem before we move on. ADHD prescriptions are on the rise. High school and college students are abusing them, believing that they're not addictive, even though they are. They believe they're safer because they come from a doctor, and they are easily acceptable because they are on the rise. Accessible. The solution theorized. There is a 3-part solution, I believe, overall to this problem. Education by doctors is number 1. Responsibility by pharmaceutical companies to stop overprescribing the drug or to not market the drug as safe when it isn't necessarily safe. And zero tolerance policies on high school and college campuses. And I will reiterate why as we go on. Education. If a doctor does prescribe this drug to a child, they have to explain in depth to this child why this medication is good for them, but may not be safe for a friend who wants to try it. They also have to educate that child that it is an addictive substance that even though it has positive effects on them, they can still become addicted to it. On high school and college campuses, there should be an introductory seminar about the dangers of drugs. And explaining in the seminar or even to your patient that the drug does not necessarily increase cognitive performance, memory, and neurological functions in those who don't have ADHD. So if your friend is pressuring you to take this drug, it's not going to have a positive effect for them. Many states are only giving out 30-day prescriptions for various drugs, for opioids and other drugs. I think that should be a mandatory thing for anybody 12 to 18. A prescription refill should not be available before 30 days, and they should have to consistently see their doctor to get their refill. Alternative methods for children with ADHD should be tested. There are studies that will show that exercise has a similar effect on dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine in children with ADHD. So instead of prescribing a drug right away, putting them in a sport, making them run around a little bit more throughout the day might be just as helpful. The zero tolerance policy on campus should be a thing. I think if all students realize that if I distribute this drug or if I use it illegally when it's not mine, I might be kicked off campus. And if that's reiterated every single year, I think that'll be helpful for students to know. However, that could create a black market situation where students are trading drugs a little bit more. So the threat needs to also be enhanced with education. We need to tell students that there are other things that they can do instead of using these drugs if they're having trouble studying, if they think their grades are dropping, that there are stress management classes in high schools on campus, that there are group therapy classes that they can go through, that there's free recreational exercise available. So the zero tolerance policy should be put into place and should be followed through with. However, it should be coupled with education. Here's the prevention plan I have for a college campus. It should be threefold. First-year students should attend a mandatory seminar and pass an online seminar test. Substance-free housing should be available for students, and increased availability of those alternative methods like tutoring, academic guidance, stress management, and other strategies on campus. The first-year students that attend the mandatory substance abuse meeting. This meeting should highlight the dangers of all drugs across the board. It should highlight the statistics that are going on, especially with the opioids and Adderall and amphetamine-like drugs. And if there could be a guest speaker, that would be fantastic, because most first years coming right out of high school are not going to take it seriously from a random person up there talking. If the university has somebody who graduated there or a friend of the university that could give the lecture to make students listen, that would be ideal. Substance-free housing. Weschler et al. In 2001 saw a 3/5 reduction in substance use when substance-free housing was on campus. I believe that every university, every school should have substance-free housing. If students already know that they do not want to be a part of any substance use, then they can try to live in those substance-free dorms. It will alter the community of the college campus and hopefully eliminate a little bit of the substances that are even available. Substance-free housing also incorporates alcohol, so there's no drinking in these types of dorms. Increased availability of those other resources is ideal. There should be tutoring everywhere. Part of the reason that students are using these drugs is because of academic success. So potentially increasing their availability to tutors all the time will be helpful so they feel like they can keep their grades up. Academic guidance counselors and academic advisors should be available at all times. If that means academic advisors get bonuses or more financial compensation to be on top of their advisees, that might be helpful. We'd be able to identify if students were having a problem with their grades and how they're dealing with that problem. And increasing physical activity and exercise classes on campus. So we saw that physical activity had a positive effect on individuals with ADHD. Well, it also has a positive effect on people who are stressed and going through a hard time. Therefore, instead of taking a substance, potentially college students will jump into a Zumba class. At the end of the day, having another method instead of using a pill might positively affect the rate we're seeing these drugs be used on campus. At the end of the day, education is the key. It's the biggest component to any intervention. So those first year seminars would be huge. Having flyers and pamphlets across campus about the dangers of Adderall and amphetamine drugs and the abuses of them would be huge. Students need to know that they are dangerous even though they come from a doctor. And that's it. Thank you.